Hello everybody, thanks for coming. I'm going to switch a little bit from the production and move more to the value-added side of this morning's talks. Tell you a little bit about our initiatives in competitiveness and oil sands, crudes, and global markets. So the question we have, and that AI-EES has been dealing with for past 10, 15 years, is how do we increase the value of Alberta's oil sands, bitumen, and heavy oil resources? And in its initial conception, am I getting feedback? No, okay, sorry. This was conceptualized as the hydrocarbon upgrading program. And I don't expect you to read all of this. What I want you to take away is that back in 2004, we were initially focused on full upgrading. Okay, quick shift to partial upgrading in 2007, and I'll get a little bit into the reasons why that was. But I won't get into a lot of the details around our portfolio and partial upgrading. I'll leave that to Dr. Shenlan Liu, who will come up and tell you a little bit about that after I'm finished. But what I wanted to do was highlight some of our history and results from our competitiveness studies. So in 2012, we started our first phase of these, what we've been calling competitiveness studies, focused on value uplift in PAD 2. Very recently, over the past year, this has been a shift to look and expand this study into what's the potential value uplift of partially upgraded crudes in global markets. So just to paint the picture here, what do we mean by partial upgrading? We mean something that increases the value of bitumen and heavy oil derived products and reduces the diluent requirements for transport. So can you reduce or eliminate that need to dilute our heavy oil and bitumen? Currently, I mean, what we've been marketing is something on the scale that's either a fully upgraded sweet synthetic crude oil or a dilbit, which has low market value on the one hand, or costs you a lot of capital and doesn't give you the best return. And then there's everything in between. The question is, can we shift this to produce less low market value dilbit and something that is partially upgraded, doesn't require that diluent, so that we increase our market value and access, decrease the diluent requirements, and minimize capital cost intensities. So in phase one, we called it technology opportunities to improve the competitiveness of Alberta's oil sands for US refineries. This study was completed in 2012. It's up on our website. If you want to take a read at it, I encourage you to. It's an excellent report. But the takeaway here was what we're shipping, or what the potential there is about $16 per barrel in potential value uplift. So we evolved into phase two. First study I should mention was conducted by Jacobs Consultancy. Second phase, we contracted Muse Stansel, and we expanded our participation to include other government organizations. We also brought in the Saskatchewan government, which was really encouraging federal government through Natural Resources Canada and CanMan Energy up in Devon, as well as 6 oil sands companies. And thank those of you who have been involved in this that are here today. This has really been a collaborative effort. The scope was broken out into 3 stages. First was to look at the qualities that are valued by different refinery regions in these, across the globe, in these different global regions. Second stage was to look at, okay, so what are the emerging technologies in this area? What technologies are available for partially upgrading bitumen and heavy oil? And then a third stage was to take a look at, okay, so if we start producing something that's between that dilbit and our fully upgraded synthetic crude oil, how does that get to these markets? What are the logistics? What's the potential increase in value back to Western Canada? And like I said, this has recently been completed, so I'm going to share with you a few of the results, but I won't be able to get into all the details here in the 6 or 7 minutes that I have to tell you all about this. So quickly, a look at the key global markets in phase 2. We looked at 6 different regions. One was the Gulf Coast and a couple of different refinery configurations here. Another region was Europe, Northern China, Japan, South Korea, and India. And what this is really highlighting is that each region has a different capacity and ability to handle crude oils, right? So they've got different capacities for coking, asphalt, solvent deasphalting, resid hydrocracking, and so on. What this translates into is each region valuing those crude oils differently, right? So as part of this, we had Mustansel develop a predictive equation to relate the refining value or their perceived value of those crude oils to different properties of those crude oils. And some of those properties include sulfur in the whole crude, distillate weight percent, and other things. The second part of this, as I mentioned, was to analyze some of the partial upgrading technologies that are emerging and that AI-EES has been supporting. So we analyzed a range of 6 partial upgrading technologies currently under development, and the analysis was based on 5 different criteria ranging from the methodology, the technical viability, their costs, as well as integration potential, because that's a key to, as you know, we've been talking about, reducing emissions and really having an effective process. So the last piece of this was to look at, okay, so we've understand that there's this potential for partially upgraded crudes. What is that netback? What is the increase in the return that one of these things or more of these crude products could produce? So based on assays that we had available, here's a look at one of them. And we can see that the potential for this particular crude product, pub being a partially upgraded bitumen product, really has potential in Europe, which is the green wedge, as well as the US Gulf Coast. Okay? If we look at a second one, this one has better potential in China, less potential in the US Gulf Coast, and a couple of other areas. So again, different markets, different crude oils, different values for each one. Now, what does this mean for Western Canada? What's you know, the takeaway at the end of the day? And we looked at 2 production forecasts, one which starts in 2022 and starts to produce a partially upgraded crude oil and incrementally increases to about 600,000 barrels a day. The other, which is about half of that. And the end result is that when you take into account the aggregate effect of those partially upgraded crude oils in the market and their effects on the other crude oils coming out of Western Canada, there's on the order of a gross increase anywhere between $5 to $10 billion a year by 2035. So huge potential in pursuing this line of products and this line of technology innovation for Western Canada. So quickly, I've ran through all that fairly fast, but I briefly want to hit on what's next. We've gone through this evolution of focusing on full upgrading to partial upgrading to looking at the market potential. And the question is, where do we go from here? And as Eric mentioned, Eddie was seconded to Natural Resources Canada and really provided leadership and vision to pulling together a program, a national partial upgrading program, with the intent to support industry-led development of partially upgrading technologies to field pilot level, as well as to fill gaps in understanding fundamental mechanisms. Okay. So the approach, and this has been developed through a couple of workshops that we've held, as well as further consultations with industry members, many of you who are in the room today. The approach, the conception at the beginning was, okay, in order to put everybody on the same footing, in order for everybody to move forward with this, we need to start with a background review of what's out there, who's doing what, where are the centers of excellence and the expertise. And then that'll filter down into these conceptualized areas for diluent reduction, stability and compatibility, byproduct mitigation, what do you do with things like asphaltenes, as well as this theme for process integration. How do you integrate some of these new technologies with our current operations? And like any good development scenario, this has a stage-gated process to take things right from concept through to bench scale, detailed process flow and economics, and into field pilot pre-commercial level design. I'm happy to tell you that we've been advancing this rather quickly. Background review has been completed, and this filtered into a recommendation to add another specific area for this program, which really is in line with all of the work we've been doing under the competitiveness studies, and focus on the market. Where is understand the market and the market challenges for introducing these new products, right? Where can they go and what is the potential for them? So the next phase of this, and this is sort of pre-conceptual stage, is a further in-depth look at Eastern Canadian and European market access. One of the gaps you may have noticed in our phase 2 competitiveness study was we looked at Gulf Coast, we looked at Asia, we looked at Europe, and we didn't look too closely at Canada. So this is to take a more detailed look at what is going on in the specific refineries on the east and how, with perhaps the Energy-EES pipeline, can these products fit into that market. Quick summary notes. Clearly, partial upgrading technologies have the potential to improve the economics and competitiveness of oil sands products. However, there's still a need for ongoing research and technology development to reduce emissions and achieve the desired product qualities that markets are looking for. Joint government industry research and technology development are underway. AI-EES has been a great leader in moving a lot of these forward, and this is resulting in ongoing AI-EES collaborations to develop this national partial upgrading program. I'd like to welcome further collaboration and thank those who have been involved thus far. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll introduce the other half of this dynamic duo to talk to you a little bit more about our portfolio and partial upgrading. Dr. Shenlan Liu.